this evening, really practical, and you go away and take some ideas to enhance your teaching in the primary languages classroom. And same for any secondary colleagues that are out there, lots of this will be applicable to you as well. If you are listening live, or indeed after, and you'd like to provide any feedback or ask any questions, then you can do so using the hashtag PLN webinar, or you could direct questions or feedback to myself at Betsy Bell Teach or to Janet at Janet Lloyd Net. Okay. So I'm really grateful that I've been given the opportunity to do this webinar on apps. I have been in primary languages now for 2 years and have really found apps to be something that have enabled me to celebrate people's work, to really practically to collect evidence of their work and maybe go away and assess it later, or give them feedback on the spot and say, this recording was fabulous, how could you do better, how could you improve it or move it on? And most importantly for me, it's given me the chance to foster quite an exciting learning environment. I think the main thing that we all strive towards as teachers is creating an experience that will maximize the learning really, and maximize the learning outcome. But there are other pressures as teachers. We have to bear in mind recruitment and retention, and celebrate and raise the profile of our subjects. And I've really found the apps that I'm going to talk about this evening have supported me in doing that. A couple of weeks ago, somebody on Primary Languages, the Facebook page, Languages in Primary Schools, shared this image here. And I found it quite interesting because a lot of the apps in the foster students creativity category were ones that I've either been really interested in using myself, or I have used and have become quite established in my day-to-day teaching. These are the ones I'd like to share with you tonight, and I want to show you evidence of times that I've used them, a bit of rationale on how and why they might work for you, and also a step-by-step guide. However, I won't go through that in too much detail. If you are listening live, come back later, or pause the screen and have a look at the step-by-step guide and treat it like a bit of a tutorial. Okay. The first thing I'm going to, why use apps? So this is just a brief overview of my thoughts really on how apps and ICT in your planning and teaching can support you and can create and support all those things that I've just mentioned. So an entertaining and memorable learning experience for pupils. I know that we're not there to be entertainers, but to create a memorable learning experience at a time when they might finish a task, and I can connect a listening file to a worksheet so that they can listen when they're ready with their own device and their headphones. Giving pupils access to authentic target language experiences, such as using Skype, and supporting myself and yourselves when collecting evidence of pupils' work, allowing me to assess and feedback. I mentioned just before that there's a couple of apps that allow you to really easily capture a bit of spoken target language, and then you can assess it on the spot, or you can take it away later. Something that I like to do is ask a target language question. Recently it was, what do you like to do at the beach? And then I went around the whole class as they were working on a different task and asked them to record their answer. So some people said you can play, I like to swim in the sea, I like to eat ice creams, I like to sunbathe. And then we actually were able to, I saved that myself, and in the next lesson, the subsequent lesson, we started that off as a listening activity, and all the pupils were able to listen to their peers' answers and do some things with that language. And also support and challenge pupils when used as a tool for differentiation. I will show you how I've done that myself later on in the presentation. Okay, so the first thing on the next slide I'd like to talk you through is walking through the jungle. So this is a topic from the Primary Languages scheme of work. So for network members who are listening tonight or listening later, you'll be quite familiar with this page. And for those who aren't, we probably will show you at the end quickly the VLE so you can see where you would go and just how much there is available to you as a teacher to support you in your planning and delivering of the lessons. So this is a story that our associate teacher Emily, who is beautiful French native speaker, who's got a much more beautiful accent than myself, has recorded the audio for a story about walking through the jungle. So it's On va marcher dans la jungle. Qu'est-ce que tu peux voir? And the pupils meet all the jungle animals. Before the noun is revealed to them, we use adjectives to describe what it is, and then they can predict and guess the language. So here you can have a quick listen to the story.
On va marcher dans la jungle. On va marcher dans la jungle. Qu'est-ce que tu peux voir? Écoute et regarde. Grande et orange. C'est une girafe. On va marcher dans la jungle. Qu'est-ce que tu peux voir?
Okay, so I'm not going to show the whole of the story, but you can see the structure, and that was really the introduction to the lesson for me. You can go on a few slides until the end of the story, please. And as a follow-up activity, we did all kinds of things. We did acting out, being jungle explorers. We acted out, thank you, that's the perfect slide, thank you. We acted out being the animals. The pupils chanted the story along with me. What I wanted to do though was get the pupils to use this lesson as a dictionary skills lesson. So they'd had the adjectives from the story, and I wanted to give them a chance to go and find their own ones. And I decided to use the iPads for this and the app that's called Wordificator. This is similar to what most of you will be familiar with Word Cloud, and there are lots of alternatives available for this app. My colleague Robert used one in his webinar a few weeks ago really successfully. You can listen back to that. It's in the archives on the Primary Languages website, Primary Languages Network website. If you go to events, you'll be able to see it in the archive there. And he used it to really exploit a grammar point. It really used it to the pupils to understand and master adjectival agreements. The animals I had in mind were all masculine, so on the next slide, please, you will see that they just used, I'll talk you through the app. So basically you can choose a picture to turn into word art. You just type your list of words in, then you can change the colour and the layout and save your word art as a picture. I won't read through all of this right at the planning stages, but if you want to take a look later on, you can have a look at the rationale behind it. But basically, to create a visually appealing dimension to the presentation, that would be if you were using it yourself in the planning stages. But for these pupils, I wanted them to develop their dictionary skills and their writing skills. Some pupils just worked at word level and picked adjectives that were relevant to their animal, and other pupils were able to develop it into creating a full sentence. On the next slide, you will see, and if you click through it, please, Peter, you will see a step-by-step guide, but I will not talk you through this because it's something that you can come back to at a later date and use as a tutorial. So if you click through all of those boxes there and go on to the final slide so I can show you some examples of the pupil work. So the pupils were all able to use this app themselves. I just needed to get the iPads in advance and download the Wordificate app onto each of the devices that we were going to use. And it was quite user-friendly. The pupils are absolute wizards with technology, so they didn't struggle with this at all. Go back to the step-by-step guide later on if you want to be reminded of how to use it, but you can see here they've got the snake, the elephant, the parrot, and they've selected their own adjectives that they found in the dictionaries. There was one school where they didn't have access to their own iPads, so I provided a paper version, and they enjoyed that just as much, really. What I was really building to was having some great written sentences that they could then move on and transfer to it and develop the skill of speaking as well as the skill of writing. So I used in the subsequent lesson the next app, which is on the next slide. This is called Chatterpix. It's actually Chatterpix for kids. That's the pupil-friendly version and the educational version. So I've only discovered this recently. Previously, I was using another version called Yakit, and there was something called Funny Movie Maker, I think. So they're also available. If you click forward, please, on the other end to the next slide, and I will just give you some ideas of how you might use it and how it works. So Chatterpix is really user-friendly. It turns any still photo that you have into a moving and talking avatar. So it allows you to record a voiceover, and then after that you can decorate with text and with stickers. So basically choose a picture, grab something from Google, take a picture of something in the classroom. You draw a line on the picture where you'd like the mouse to be, and then you just record yourself or the pupil speaking in the target language. You can decorate it afterwards and then you save it. I think this is a really nice idea to do a variety of things. You could have it as a class mascot. You could have an avatar version of yourself. I've used it to make food talk. You can have avatar celebrities, monsters, zombies, and basically creating your own listening activities. It develops the pupils' speaking skills because it's encouraging them to talk. But essentially, it can boost confidence for those shy pupils who don't particularly want to talk, but actually behind the mask of a cartoon character or a picture of somebody else, they don't feel quite as intimidated. Like I said before, I've used this to circulate with my own device. So this app I tend to use more on my own device rather than the pupils using it. It does work really nicely if you do use it with the pupils, and I have done that with some success. But I do like to use it as an assessment tool, and it's very motivating, very engaging for the pupils, and it just gives you that chance to transform something that you've written into something interactive and entertaining. As a revision resource later on, it's something that they're very likely to come back to. You know, they take pride in the work, they like what they've produced, and they're more likely to revisit it. Okay, if we go on to the next slide, I'll show you a couple of videos of how I've used this. Oh, there's your step-by-step guide, sorry. So if you want to come back to this later in the presentation, then you can have a look. If you just click through those, please, Peter, and then move on to the next slide. Now, if you hover over the video, the play button should come up. There we go.
Je suis gris. Je suis multicolore intelligent.
There we go. And what we did with this on the next slide is I actually have taken those two learning activities. I did do a final activity, which was we decided that's perfect, that slide. If you just click onto the next part, I'll just tell everybody what I did in my own teaching, which was to actually take the song In the Jungle, The Lion Sleeps Tonight, and we just adapted the words to fit with the story that Emily had read to us. So we had a couple of snippets of this, and I wanted to put it in a video. So I decided to use the Adobe Spark Video. This is another app that I really tend to use. In fact, I've only ever used it myself as a teacher to support my own teaching and recording and sharing of people work. It allows you to merge multiple recordings into a whole piece. And then you can illustrate these recordings with text and images, and you can add music to the finished piece. So you record short segments of target language. So like I said before, the pupils could be answering a question or describing something, or even reciting a line from a poem or a song. It can be different things as well. They don't all need to be the same type of thing. You can have little bits of video, little bits of audio, and then you can also add pictures as well, or text. So once you've got all of your segments of video, you can merge it into one, preview the video, and you can finish it off by adding more music over the top if you wish. So I've used this to create really engaging resources to introduce the target language. Sometimes I've used it instead of a PowerPoint presentation, so spoken words only. Then the video will move on to pictures of nouns with the spoken words, pictures of spoken words plus text captions. I've added bits of video, which you'll see in a minute in the example. I've added talking avatars, and it just results in a really impressive video to capture people's attention, but it doesn't take you too long to create. I've used it as a class survey, which I've already just mentioned before. And then, really importantly, I've used to showcase pupil work and share it with colleagues or parents and celebrate achievement with the pupils. I love walking into a class the following week and they say to me, Miss Michelle, have you made that video for us? And I'm able to share it with them and really celebrate what they've done in the previous week. So if we can move to the next slide, and I will show you what we did with the whole, there's the step-by-step guide. And then on the next slide, you can come back to that later if you want to use it as a tutorial. This is the compilation of everything they did on the topic walking through the jungle.
Le serpent est long et vert. Le perroquet multicolore. L'éléphant est grand et gris. Le singe est rapide et marron. Le tigre est terrible.
Dans la jungle, terrible jungle, le lion est mort ce soir. Tous les hommes tranquilles s'endorment, le lion est mort ce soir.
Dans la jungle, terrible jungle, qu'est-ce que tu peux voir? Je suis multicolore intelligent. Je suis rapide et marrant. Je suis dangereux et méchant. Je suis dangereux et rapide. Je suis gris et gros.
Okay, there we go. So we can move on to the next slide. And I'll move on to the next topic. So this is Out of This World. And it's a new topic for me to teach. The first year we've had this on the PLN scheme of learning. And I've taught it for everybody who follows the scheme. You'll be teaching this next half term. I've taught it early so that I could collect some evidence to share with you tonight. And one of the first activities that's available is a story, again, narrated by Emily, of a trip to the moon. So on the next slide, you'll see that I've used the Chatterpix app again, just to create a little mascot, a little companion. So this guy, we'll play it in a second. This guy I created at home. I just used Emily's narration again and captured it on this app. And a picture that's drawn by another of our associates, Anna, and just combine that in the app to create a mascot. So the pupils, the first thing they saw was this alien, and after that I announced that he was going to take them on a journey through space. So if you play that now, please.
Bienvenue dans l'espace, les astronautes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Lovely. And on the next slide, I'll talk to you about a couple of the activities that we did. So one of them was to create, to understand an ID card. So the pupils did this activity where they use their reading skills to use the knowledge of English, knowledge of French and cognates and things like that to understand all of the elements on an ID card. And then they moved on to creating their own version. And as a motivator for making that really creative and making it really unique, I told them that I would be selecting certain pupils to do this in the Checkapix Kids app. So again, I'm just using the app myself rather than the pupils all having a go, but it would have worked well if the pupils were doing it themselves as well. And I took a couple of pupils into the corridor, and on the next slide you'll see one of the examples of work that they were able to produce. So this is a pupil in Year 5 who has created her own alien who is going to accompany her through space on her travels to visit all of the planets, and he's talking about himself in French. So back to the previous slide and we can press play.
Je m'appelle Pouf, j'habite à Mars, j'aime la pomme, j'ai un chat, j'ai la peau rose, je suis petit, je suis timide, au revoir.
There we go. And the head teacher actually popped along the corridor during recording that, and she wanted that to go straight on the website. She loved it. So it was a great way of the school celebrating what the pupils are doing. Then I, just this afternoon, have tried out the app on the next slide, which is called HP Reveal. It was previously called Erasmus, and some of you will have heard of it before as Erasmus, which is, I know in America they use it a lot. It's now been rebranded as HP Reveal. So if we go on to the next slide, and I'll just give you some of my thoughts on how it could be used in the learning. And for secondary colleagues, it struck me this afternoon that this would be a fantastic way of practicing the GCSE component where they have to describe a picture. So what HP Reveal allows you to do is create an augmented reality experience. You take a picture, then you link a video to it. Then in the classroom, the students have a device, an iPad, and they have the app open, and they scan the picture, and the video that you've pre-selected will pop up in an augmented reality fashion. So that tells you how to use it. And I thought it would really create intrigue, spark curiosity. The pupils are going on an adventure. What's going to happen? What will appear? And it really is a great way of facilitating independent learning. This is what I did this afternoon. I sent the pupils out with the TA into the corridor to go on their own space journey and discover information for the planets and the solar system for themselves. We decided to put space boots on, put space helmets on, do the countdown from 10 to 1 blast off, and then small groups went out into the corridor with the iPads, with the TA, and I'd put flashcards of all of the pictures of the planets down the corridor. They took notes as they went along and found out a bit more information about each planet. I'll show you the example of work, but before I do so, I'll just say that it's a great way of increasing exposure to listening. I said before, it's a bit of a neglected skill because you don't want to always do it as a whole class activity. Sometimes you want to be able to make it more differentiated. If you were to have a worksheet with whatever was on that worksheet or had a small picture at the top, just in the same way that QR code works, you will be able to, once the pupils had finished that piece of work, they could then scan the picture and then do a listening activity on their own, and that could be a stepped activity. Here's a step-by-step guide for how you could use it, and you can come back to that in your own time. And on the next slide, I'll show you how I used it this afternoon. So the first picture, you can see the pupils on their space journey. So the picture in the background is the sun with Mercury, and then you can see on the iPad, it's actually our little space character talking. So they scan the picture of the sun and Mercury, and the little avatar pops up, and it's Emily's voice that I've recorded, and the avatar is telling them about Mercury, and it's the planet next to the sun. If you like, Peter, you can just play the square picture of the alien at the bottom, and that will show everybody on the left with the pink alien. That's what, if you play that, that's what people can hear.
Ça, c'est Pluton, la planète froide.
Okay, and now on the final one, where the pupils are scanning Pluto, and if you press play, they'll hear them actually going on their journey of discovery. They are scanning the picture, they are listening to the linked video, which is an avatar, and you can hear them sort of discussing with each other what they think that extra information is that they're being told by the avatar. So press play.
Ça c'est Pluton. No, this is Pluton. That is Pluto, the cold planet. That is Pluton. This is Pluto, the cold planet. No, that is Pluto, the cold planet.
There we go. So it struck me that you could do this with a picture. The pupils could try and describe it, and then they could scan it afterwards, and you could provide a model answer, giving them more information. Right, if we go on to the next slide. And this is our topic, going to the seaside. So, I mean, it was quite surreal for me to teach this in the last couple of weeks, just to make sure I had some more things to share with you this evening, because I was teaching this to Year 6 2 weeks ago when the country was covered in a few inches of snow, and I had to make it relevant by showing them live feed from the south of France where there was snow on the beach, and there was snow on the beach in Corsica. But they really enjoyed this topic. And what we have done with it is we have used the Green Screen app, and we've used the Apple Clips app. This is, if we go on to the next slide, these are some of the activities that are available on the Primary Languages Network, VLE. So La Famille Extraterrestre is an animated video. The alien family are really familiar to our learners within the network because they meet them in a range of topics, that they're really familiar with them. So they went to the beach, and we listened and enjoyed that story. Then the pupils learned their phrases, what you can do at the beach. And then they carried on doing different activities and built up towards writing an advert, persuading people to come to the beach and explaining what they can do there. And that was all great. What I want to do is take it one step further and make it really relevant to our learners who are used to living in digital world, and create an advert that wasn't written, that was actually filmed. So I used the Apple Clips app to film them. If you go into the next slide, Apple Clips is an app which is available only on iPads and on iPhones. I saw Joe Dale did an article on it recently, and I hadn't used it before, so I thought I would like to use it and see how it can support me as a teacher. And on the next slide, I've got my thoughts of how we could all use it. So basically, it's a video function which allows you to record short clips and merge them together. But the advantages are you can decorate the short clips with captions and stickers. And then the most innovative feature is the live subtitling capability. So you can choose to film the pupil and select your target language. There's about 30 languages available. And as long as the pupil speaks clearly and slowly enough, the technology within the app allows, it automatically generates subtitles for whatever the pupil is saying. So you can create a really relevant piece of work that reflects the digital world that we live in and the social media trends. And the videos I'm going to show you in a minute that are evidence of work could easily be seen on Instagram or on Facebook as videos persuading people to do something. So it's really making our learning relevant and, again, memorable to the pupils. It can develop confidence when speaking because it encourages clarity and accurate pronunciation. And they get that immediate feedback. If the app, which is basically a robot, can understand what they're saying, then they know they're doing a pretty good job. You could record one pupil or the whole class. Again, this one target language question followed by individual responses from each member of the class. Develop the reading skills, correct spelling and grammar. So
The app automatically generates subtitles, but there are often errors. This would be something that I think would be a great way of differentiating. If you can pair up, plan who you're going to pair up, a lower ability or a higher ability people. I know you have to do that sensitively. But if you can do that and then have the lower ability people speaking, and then afterwards the other people, both the people together, but with the higher ability people supporting, can actually go back and check that the captions were accurately generated, if there were any spelling mistakes, if there needs to be anything changed, any errors corrected. Then the finished piece is easy to share, it's visually appealing, and therefore a great way of sharing and celebrating people's work. So if we move to the next slide, I will show you two versions. The first version on the next slide is, again, there's a step-by-step guide for those who'd like a bit of a tutorial. Don't play this just yet, Peter, but the first version is short segments merged together with no clips, no captions. But you'll be able to see that you can annotate the individual clips and put relevant stickers or caption text things on it, labels really. But the second version, I've recorded it all in one go without breaks, and I've used the live clips function so you can see that he's spoken his French nice and clearly, and the app has been able to pick it up and generate the subtitles in French. Okay, let's play version number 1.
Viens à la plage, avec le ciel bleu et le sable d'or. On peut nager, on peut manger des glaces. Ça va être super.
And that boy was really proud of his work. I really enjoyed the finished product, which I shared with him this afternoon. And the second pupil equally enjoyed his, although it wasn't covered in stickers and emojis.
Viens à la plage, ça va être super. On peut nager, on peut jouer au foot, on peut jouer au volley. Viens à la plage.
There we go. I'm sure that having seen this, you've got plenty of ideas about how this can be used. If we just have a quick look at version 2, you'll see that he's got a beach in the background. Now, you can't do that on clips, but you can combine clips and the next app that I'm going to talk about, the final app that I'm going to talk about this evening, which is green screen. If we move on to the next slide. Green screen is something that I know we've been using for years, but previously you needed a lot of technology and it was quite costly to do so. Nowadays you can do it extremely cheaply. So you've got the app, which is called Green Screen by Doing, and then you just need something green. My green fabric, there's a picture on one of the slides coming up of my own green screen, which is a shower curtain from IKEA, which costs 50p. You can get a green curtain, a green piece of fabric. I know some people have got green display boards, they've painted them green or put green sugar paper up. You can really use anything and make it as cheap as you like. If we move forward, please, and I'll talk to you about some ideas of why we can use this app. So it allows you to film a scene in front of your own green screen, and then once you've filmed it, you can add a layer behind whatever you've recorded and also a layer over the top. So put up your green screen and open the app and record your video. Then you select an image to display behind the video. So I've used the beach. Depending on what your task is, I mean, you could have any scenario. So you can open the people's imagination. You can say, put yourselves anywhere you like in the world, under the sea, out in space, and it adds that layer of realism or authenticity or just their imagination to whatever the spoken piece is. I think it's particularly relevant if you're using the green screen to record pupils while they're doing a weather report, or if they're perhaps presenting from outer space, a foreign country, or inside the home of a celebrity. The options are endless, really. All you need is a photo to add as the background, and that can be their stimulus for preparing a presentation. the brilliant thing about this is it enables people who maybe aren't passionate about languages but are passionate about drama to apply their talents and passion to a French, Spanish, German activity. I've used it as a reward because the pupils love this so much. At the end of a topic, it's a tool for them to demonstrate evidence that they have learned and put it all together in a lovely piece, something that they're proud of, and then essentially they'll be more likely to watch it back, and then it can be a tool for revision. So if we go on to the next screen, which will be a step-by-step guide, if you want to use this later and have a look how, in fact I'll just pause on that because you can see my screen from yesterday. It's just pinned up to the notice board, the display board, and it's as easy as that. Now this boy you'll see is just looking at his face there, it says it all really. He's thrilled to be doing this. He's not the most enthusiastic in the languages lesson, but he loves drama. And so for him, this will be a memorable experience that he will, he's already seen the finished product and he was really proud of what he did here. So if we can play this.
Arrivi alla plage, arrivi alla plage. Mais où est ma chapelle de soleil? Voilà. Merci.
Allez, arrivez à la plage.
Arrivi alla plage, arrivi alla plage. Mais ensuite, mes luces de soleil. Merci.
Allez,
Arrivi alla plage, arrivi alla plage, arrivi alla plage. Mais uns est ma crème soleil. Voilà. Merci.
allez.
Arrivi alla plage, arrivi alla plage, arrivi alla plage. Mais on est ma serviette. Merci.
Arrivez à la plage, arrivez à la plage, arrivez à la plage.
Und est mon ballon de plaque. Voilà. Merci.
Allez, arrivez à la plage, arrivez à la plage, arrivez à la plage.
Mais und est le soleil. Merci. Très bien.
There we go. So I think that's a really nice clip to end on because it really does prove the point to me that sometimes you need something that's a little bit different. You need technology really to be able to create something that can appeal to all the language learners. And I think for him, that's something that he will remember forever. And I certainly will, because I was pleased and so proud of him for getting involved and having that experience. So they're all the apps that I wanted to present to you tonight. There are others, but I hope that I've been able to give you some practical ideas of how you could use the apps I've talked about and discussed in your own teaching. And I've just summarised really there how they can benefit us as language teachers. And I'm wondering if there are perhaps any questions that anybody would like to ask.
Whilst
If so, I'll invite you to use the chat facility, or perhaps. Oh, thank you.
Whilst people are
Oh,
thinking
that's some admin. Lovely.
I would just like to say thank you to Michelle, because technology sometimes gets in the way, and in this instance it was to do with a laptop in the background and to do with other technical difficulties. But I have learned so much by just watching this webinar. I have tweeted some of the things that Michelle has shown, and I think my great joy then was to see that little boy at the end, maybe not the best linguist in the world, but really engaging with language learning and taking something away that he will keep forever as an experience that was enjoyable and that he succeeded in. And to Michelle, I'd like to say one huge thank you. And I'm sure if people are listening could, they'd give her a big round of applause, because they'd be able to see what's happening in the background. So thank you very much, Michelle.
Thank you, Janet. If I've been unmuted, then I will just say thank you to all those lovely comments at the bottom. That was touch and go for a while with technology. We're always told in our training to always have a backup. Thank you for Janet and Peter for being on the other end and making the webinar possible by showing the PowerPoint from their end. Thank you so much. And if there's anything else I can help you with, please feel free to get in touch and I will try to answer your questions. Bonsoir tout le monde.